Good afternoon. So, I'll try to dedicate the next hour or so to discuss science actually, but it will be mostly not empirical science. Or empirically supported science, like mostly what I try to do. But instead, it will be kind of like I would say more of a speculative, very speculative science. So it's be, things that are of kind of like more. Everything that I do is deep in the territory of X-Files, but this will be more than usual X-Files. I'll discuss things that I actually did not record, but already spoke about it, but did not upload to YouTube. So I'll upload now. So this will be like an upload with a little bit more elaboration. So we have three actually topics. One is related to archaeology and to the starships. The second is related to the neurons and cosmology, like how can the neurons, how can it affect cosmology? And the third is, I would say, solid state mechanics of neurons, which is something that we do not discuss much in this channel, mostly because it's very difficult for me to gather the required empirical evidence, unfortunately. Of course, a much better laboratory, any kind of laboratory would have helped tremendously. This is incredibly important topic, but I don't have the evidence, so this talk will also be kind of like very speculative, but since it's important subject, topic, so I think it should be discussed. Because it's evident that, these are not microbes that require like liquid or very soft material to live in. Not at all. It's a great mistake to think along those lines. Not at all. They can, and certainly we've seen evidence for that they can live and work inside solid material. This is something, and this has incredible implications on many fields of physics and above. What you probably you, my audience, would find most interesting, if I understand your state of mind, if I like in a correct manner. What's on your kind of like on your agenda, besides presumably the knowledge that all the aliens are going to kill all of you, which I must say seems to affect your behavior much less than you could have thought. But like something that I think evidently is very important to you is energy generation, and it's so we will discuss that, but again in a very speculative way. But before all these three topics, I want to speak just very shortly about the Reagans issue. So, very briefly, I will say that the reaction to like the triple corpse phenomenon, I cannot completely understand it, because of course, first of all, it arrives from different sources, and different people know different stuff, even within the United States, and not only the United States are interested in such things, and they should. It should, and rightfully so. It should be the interest of everybody, and so what I think that possible reactions could be attributed to different kind of knowledge of what actually happened. Just to say that, I mean, when I discussed the issue of like, I mean, of the clone, like the clone inside the coffin, I mean, I didn't really think that it's possible that, I mean, that you actually see like a full clone, like a full Frankenstein body, because it's unlikely that this will happen in such a closed, I mean, where the object is so much, I mean, in almost the size of their container. What is most probable to actually see, I mean, you can see all sorts of stuff, everything will be amazing and, I mean, horrifying and fantastic and even nice. But I mean, most probably it will be something along the lines of what we've seen in the early fly experiments, like during January, February. We have very nice videos, I mean, from January and February, where the fly is almost the size, it's not microscopic, and it's almost the size of the slide. So what you see is, I mean, a heap of limbs, like, I mean, all sorts of limbs that are scattered, that are obviously not the original limbs of the fly. I mean, this is obvious that, I mean, it's extra limbs that are, I mean, are just, I mean, created by the neurons, like, I mean, and they were not assembled to a new fly, I mean, most certainly because they didn't have the required energy, or they required, I mean, the required space and the required matter. So probably this is like some kind of the thing that you can expect from a coffin, like of a construction, like the Brown construction that I outlined. Now the question is like, what actually people knew? So there is a chance that people actually, like all over the, I mean, even in the United States, there is kind of like a slim chance that they didn't know nothing. That they thought that, I mean, that this couple is like Homo sapiens, and they're completely shocked. But I mean, this is like of very low probability. I mean, this, in order for that to happen, it requires like a complete wipeout of the Secret Service, and large, tremendous, like, I mean, percentage of the FBI. I mean, during the 80s, and I don't think that such thing happened. I mean, yes, there was kind of like a purge, but not to that extent. So my assumption is that, I mean, at least, I mean, the knowledge that Nancy was not Homo sapiens was widespread in the United States and still is. Maybe I'm wrong. Now, assuming he was not a hybrid, but I mean, but he was actually a Titan, at least at the time of his presidency. So there is a question like whether the people in the United States knew about it. It's not necessarily that they didn't know about it. Maybe they knew about it. Maybe they not knew about it even early on. And they didn't want like to fake another Watergate, like like in the case of Nixon. Like, I mean, because they decided that, I mean, Nixon was like too fresh in the memory of everybody, and another kind of like drama that requires the president that was very popular to resign would have been too much. And I should remind you that Reagan was very popular. I mean, and in the second term he was even more popular than, I mean, in the first term. Like, the popularity increased. And this is actually also true to Nixon, by the way. When Nixon was elected, he was extremely popular. I mean, in our time, I mean, like, he was kind of like, I mean, in the image of the public image is kind of like, the outcast presidents, and like a symbol of, of public, shameful politicians that the public hate. But actually, the Watergate scandal happened just after, I mean, just after his second election, in which he was extremely popular. But public opinion changes very quickly, as the ancients in Earth knew very well. So it's possible that I mean, people even knew about the fact that he's a Titan in the United States very early. Now, it's possible that they didn't, and then they are kind of like, I mean, they don't like the idea. I mean, they did not get used to the idea that the president was a robot spy. Like, I mean, if they already knew that long ago, I mean, it would not going to be shocking now. But if they didn't, if they didn't, it might be shocking. Now, there is another kind of like a scenario in which it was kind of like a murder mystery, because at some point people in the United States understood what happened, but they didn't understand but they didn't understand that Nancy is actually, that Reagan, the Titan Reagan is actually formerly Nancy. So maybe they thought that Nancy is just Nancy, and that at some point the president was murdered and replaced with a robot, but they didn't know who have done that, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the Israelis. Presumably, it could be almost anyone. Certainly, I mean, the usual culprits are, I mean, countries that have access to the gates and are known to be, actors in the alien trade, which is not only Israel. Not only Israel. Possibly it could also even be Iran. That, I mean, at the time it was presumably it's at that time they stopped like the gate operations because of the stand of the Ayatollah stand that was different from the Shah. But I mean, maybe for but they still had Titans presumably, and presumably for such a a high caliber intelligence target. I mean, maybe they can change their ways. So it's even Iran could be, but I mean, in reality, presumably it could be any country, because all you need to do is to take control of like a robot, and I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, just one. It's not that difficult, presumably. All of it presumably, because for me it's obvious that, I mean, it was the Israelis, and it's obvious that what actually happened. But maybe the Americans did not know about it. So, and maybe it's it was a modern mystery. They didn't know who murdered them and who replaced them with a robot. I don't know. And so there's a question now is, I mean, if this is the case, so the question is like, so how can you prove what's obvious to me? Which, I mean, what actually happened, he of course was an Israeli spy, and it was done by replacement of Nancy replaced him, and someone replaced Nancy, and I already told you why it's actually not that complicated to do so. Relatively, it's like first of all, it's the easiest way to do it. But how can you prove it? So, honestly, I think it's probably very easy, but I cannot really tell, because this relates to microscopic evidence that is found on the scene. I mean, you need to dig the grave, like not only just to X-ray or whatever. Maybe you didn't even dig it. Maybe you just used X-ray or something like that. But I mean, that should be enough to see. I mean, very very interesting stuff, like just X-ray. But I mean, in order to get the evidence, you need to dig it up and use microscopic examination. And my estimation is it's not going to be difficult. But I mean, if it's important to you, just do it. I mean, that's my view on the matter. Okay, so very soon we'll start the first of the three speculative issues in which we will discuss the starships and a little bit of archaeology.